Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Cleo. Today I will be showing you this Liquid AIO coming from Deepcool, known as the LS720. In this video I will be talking about the unit itself, the accessories, and how it performed on my 7950X. Now before I begin, I'd like to thank Deepcool to have provided this unit for me to share with you. Let's get into it. These are the specifications of this LS720 from Deepcool, and you can find out the radiator dimension, the material that's made of, and the pump noise and such, and of course the fan dimension and the pressure static airflow and such. You can pause this and read through. When you unbox this unit itself, you will be provided with the radiator, the pump, 3 FC120 from Deepcool, these are the fans, and a box of accessory, and I believe the manual is inside. I'll start off with the radiator itself. As you can see, now the pump block itself is pretty unique. In fact, this you can swivel to the direction depending on how you place your block on the IHS of your motherboard itself. And next will be this hose here. The length of this hose is total 410 millimeters in length, so it's pretty enough for you to feather. And best part, it has this brackets over here to hold the hose when you are angering, like positioning your IHS, let's say this way, then you can just adjust to hold the hose itself. And the radiator itself, is 27 mm thick, and it can accommodate 320 mm fans. In fact, this is a 360 AIO. And this is the technology that they have, which is the anti-leak. These are the 320 mm fans that come with this Liquid AIO, known as the Deepcool FC120. And the thickness of these fans, in fact, is 25 mm, just like the normal fans. And they are of ARGB. You can control all the effects on this fan blades over here. The rating voltage is 12 volt, and each is drawing at a 0.29 ampere. So if you to connect 3 together and to plug to your motherboard, it should not be an issue because it's lesser than 1 ampere, and some boards they provide 2 ampere, so you don't have to worry about this. Now do take note that if you want to make use of this fans on another AIO, or maybe as a case fan, you are not able to do so. Reason being, is of a unique connector, which is not the standard connectors, 3 of this. And reason why they are designed this way, because Deepcool wanted the user to have a good experience, as in when you mount on the AIO itself, you see you can daisy chain them together. See, you can connect. So it forms a daisy chain for tidy cable management, well thought of. And later I'll illustrate to you how do I connect all this and to connect to the motherboard itself. In this accessory package itself, it contains all the items you see over here. I'll start off with the instruction manual. So we have one instruction manual and this information and support manual. Of course, inside this manual, it'll show you all the items which I've shown you over here, and teaching you how to mount the Intel brackets, or should I say Intel platform, or the AMD platform. I'll start off with the top over here, where you can see this package over here. These are all the radiator screws and the fan screws to mount on your radiator. So this is how it looks like, 12 of each. This is for your fan in order to mount on the radiator itself, and this is for the screws to mount your radiator on your case. Next will be this interesting panel. Now, as you know, over here, you can see that this panel here is swivel to the direction. This is the reason being, if you were to place your radiator on the block this way, you can just swivel over here where the logo is on the right, or if you can do this, you can just swivel. So if you do not like this logo over here, you can do your own printing, which is translucent over this panel over here. And all you can do is interchange, as you can pull this out. Okay, then do your own logo and to put it here, and it will glow. Reason being, right, this block here in fact is ARGB, and all the glow will be shining off. With the original, which I'm going to show you later, this will be having the infinity mirror itself. Now, next will be this cables over here. This is essential, whereby you connect your pump and your fans to this cable here. Then you'll be able to connect to your motherboard and the ARGB connectors on your motherboard itself. On this extreme left over here, this is meant for the AMD mounting with the AMD brackets, and these are for the standoff that you mount on the motherboard itself, which I'm going to show you later. And these are for the threadripper. Then at the center over here, right, these are the locking nuts for you to hold your whole block onto this brackets over here, or this brackets. Then you have 4 screws over here for you to mount your bracket. Now take note, on the bracket itself, you will see that there's one side countersunk. If you don't understand what is countersunk, this is countersunk. Okay, so it fits this way. Do not, so that it will flush on the bracket itself. See, do not do it the other way around, which is this way. This is the wrong method. So make sure that you do it on the countersunk area. And when you're mounting the bracket, right, to your block, make sure the countersunk hole is facing towards you, this way, and not this way. This will be wrong. Moving on, these are the Intel brackets, where you can plug to the generation 9 all the way to 9 Gen all the way to Gen 13. Now I'll explain. These screws over here, right, these are meant for the 2011 and the 2066 socket, which I'm not going to illustrate. Now you have 2 sets of spacer over here, and this is needed. This is the bracket where you need to mount underneath your motherboard around the IHS area or your processor area. Now with this positioning over here, right, you'll be able to mount a Gen 9 to Gen 11 processor, and you'll be needing to use this set of spacer, which is round. See, it tells you over here the marking as 11.5x. So you can go 1151, 1155 or 1150, so that you will mount the spacer over here. Okay, so this is meant underneath your motherboard. Then once you have done, right, flip over your motherboard where it shows you the processor, and you place the spacer. Then mount this bracket onto the block itself, which I'm not going to show you how, or should I say I should show you. Now this is the positioning. Okay, it's flexible, you can place it this way too, but not for the AMD. Reason I'm showing you the Intel, because I don't have an Intel platform, that's why I'm showing you this way. So after you mount this, right, you can then seat your whole block to the bracket so that it will, you know, sit on the IHS. Then use the locking nuts to secure the AIO block. Just an illustration. Not to worry, I'll be showing you the AMD how I mount it on an actual scale. So this is how it's done. So once this is in place, right, your whole block, imagine that it's actually secured to these brackets. You will sit to your IHS. Now for Gen 12 and 13 is of a different, I mean still using the same bracket but of a different spacer. So do remember this spacer, which are round with the indication of 11.5x, these are meant for generation 9 all the way to generation 11. So if you want to mount a generation 12 or 13, right, first thing you need to do is to push. See, you heard the click, is to push all these screws away from, from the bracket center itself. Then make use of this spacer, which mentioned 1700. Then again, same format, place this underneath your motherboard. Then at the front of the motherboard itself, right, just place this spacer. Again, screw this to the AIO block, and to mount it, it will be exactly the same mechanism as in like to tighten the whole AIO block to your motherboard, or should I say sitting on your processor itself. Now let me just show you how I mount the AMD platform. Before you mount this bracket on the AIO block itself, first thing you need to do is to mount the fan first on the radiator. Reason being, right, if you do mount the bracket over here and you remove this, right, while you're working with your fans, right, you might scratch the AIO block. So make sure you do this next, but not now. Now as for the fans itself, right, do take note that you need to know certain direction or orientation. Now as you can see here, right, okay, let me just, as you can see here, right, the fans itself, they have this daisy chain clip, so you can clip from one fan to another. Make sure this clip is facing outwards, as in like out of the radiator itself. Do not mount your fan this way, whereby you see you can't even clip this. Okay, let's say I would do it this way. You can't even clip this over here. Even if you can, right, you can't close the gap. So that's the problem. If you were to do this, you should be doing all this way, as in like the clip, or should I say the connector, right, is facing up. Make sure you do it this direction so that you can clip your cable, right, from one fan to another. See? I'll fasten all the fans with this radiator screws. I've already done up all the fastening on the fans with this radiator screw just to show you one illustration, and to point out that when I fasten this, right, I noticed that there are no gaps in between the fans itself. It's pretty compact, so there won't be any leakage of air pressure. So meaning to say this AIO itself, right, the radiator where the fan is either pulling or pushing air, right, it will be compact. That will give good temperature. And another fact is that I like the mechanism whereby I screw those radiator screws, right, into this fan hose itself. It just flush directly into it and giving you a flush and premium feel. So right now I'm just going to screw this. As mentioned to you earlier, that see all these clips here, make sure that it's facing upwards or towards you, so that you can clip and to do daisy chain. See, it's pretty simple, and can just tuck the cables nicely. Once you have actually done this, right, the next thing to do is the bracket for the AIO. Did I clip it correctly? Yeah, correct. So once you have actually done this, right, make sure it's seated in nicely. Then you can just tuck the cables nicely. Then for the AIO itself, right, what you can do is this way. Okay, I'm just going to take this out. Let the gravity do everything. So I've actually angled the hose this way and to turn it this way, so the plate is facing you, I mean the cold plate. Then you can start to mount the brackets. Now as for mounting, right, I noticed that you can mount this way. Sorry, you can mount this way, or you can mount this way, either way. But following the instruction itself, right, I've mounted this way. In fact, I've actually tested the thermal, and the best way for me is to mount it this way, whereby the hose is over here and the larger piece, right, is facing towards the right hand side, and for the smaller piece, right, is towards the left hand side. So once you have done this, right, align it. Remember, do not touch the cold plate. So probably you align it, then you place the screw. Another thing to take note, make sure that the countersunk is facing towards you, off from the cold plate, and not this way. If you're going to do it this way, right, it's going to be wrong. Because when you screw in your screws in, right, see, this is wrong. So make sure that it sits flush. And based on the opinion on the fastening, right, it's pretty easy. The only thing that I dislike about this kind of mounting is that it takes out pretty much a lot of time. For those of you who have actually witnessed the another AIO where you just, like Corsair or any Galahad, you just slot the whole piece in, that is even faster. But I guess this will create more secure bracket onto the block itself. Another thing I would like to mention is that this is very shining, and if you can see, right, not too sure if you can see, all the fingerprints are over here. So probably clean it before you mount to your IHS on your motherboard or your processor on your motherboard. As you can see here, I have done the mounting of the brackets on the AIO block. And do take note again, make sure that the countersunk thread is facing you, so that when you screw your screws in, right, it will flush to the bracket itself. And another thing to take note is that there are fingerprints all over when you're mounting this. Make sure you clean it. I mean, it's up to you, but for me, I'll clean it because all these fingerprints, right, might cause oxidation. Right in front of you, in fact, there are two platforms. This is the AM4 and the AM5. Both you are able to use this liquid cooler, as the mounting mechanism, right, is the same. All is needed is to remove these two brackets that is originally from the AM4 or the AM5. And do take note on the AM4 itself, the back plate will just drop off when you take out these two brackets. And reason why mine is not, because I've done a back tape, or should I say a thermal tape on the back plate to secure on the motherboard itself. And as for the test itself, I'll be using the AM5, and I can't show you the temperature, but what it does is, for AM5 system itself, right, it will show you that the amount of cooling that you can provide to this processor, the higher clock frequency it will go. Before you mount the AIO block onto the motherboard itself where it touches the processor, make sure you have this standoff mounted on the back plate. So this is how it's being mounted. The plastic area should be facing downwards, and the metal piece over here should be facing upwards. So all you need is just to screw it down to the threads of the back plate and to hand tighten it. Next, I would to clean the processor with some alcohol. It's always a good practice to clean the surface area of your IHS, or should I say the processor top, so that there are no debris or such that is obstructing the connection between the IHS and to your block. Next will be your block over here. I would advise, before you clean with alcohol at the copper plate itself, right, make sure you clean off all the fingerprints on the bracket. It's just that I'm very particular about oxidation, so I wouldn't want anything to take place when you're using the system itself. So once you have actually done that, right, let me just put it over here. Next thing to do again, clean the surface of the block itself. Now, something to take note, when I receive this unit itself, right, this is with thermal paste pre-applied. But the thing is that I just want to remove it and use my own paste. And as for the test today, right, I will be making use of the thermal pad instead of the paste itself. So just to let you have a good judgment, or should I say a standard judgment, which I will be making use of this AIO to compete with other AIOs. Once it's done, you can leave it. Then you can apply your thermal paste. As mentioned, I'll be using this pad over here, which I normally use for testing. Then I'll place it right at the top. Now, this is a special thermal pad for processor and for air cooler or AIO. Now, with this said, right, This is the position that I find good, whereby the hose is facing the RAMs itself. You can place it over this side, not an issue. But the thing is that when I test the frequency, right, the clock frequency itself, right, this draw the most, so that's why I place it over here. And maybe when you have this AIO itself, right, you might want to try the different position, as in, like, you know, probably the hose downwards or backwards or such. See which is giving you the best clock frequency on the AM5. And as for the AM4, right, see which is the best position, as in, like, the hose position can be this way, can be this way, to see which give you a better temperature. Then you make use of that position. So right now I'm just going to lower down the block, holding on the block, make use of all this locking nut. You don't have to tighten them all the way, just make sure that the locking nut, right, is touching the plate. Don't tighten, as mentioned, because you need to have ample tension on all sides. So I'm just going to fasten all the 4 locking nut. Now, a lot have asked me, how do I know what kind of what kind of tension that I should have? Well, normally I would just base on feelings on the locking nuts itself. Once it touched the plate, right, I will stop. Once this is done, right, I would then double check on all the sides, make sure that it's touching. Yes, then I'll make use of the screwdriver to tighten. So do about a quarter turn for each nut diagonally, which I'm doing right now. Until you feel that it's hitting, or should I say there's a stoppage. Stop there, do not turn any further. So let the retention of the bracket to bite the block itself on your processor. Next is do all the connection that is on the block itself. You have 2 cables. This is meant for ARGB. Now, only for the block, alright? This is for the pump itself, and it's actually a 3-pin. So plug this to your AIO header on the motherboard itself, which is the 3-pin. So for me, which is over here, this is done. Now on the block itself, right, this so-called unique connector, this is only meant for ARGB. It's different from your fan itself. I will show you the connector later. So having to say this, right, this is to be connected to the end of the clip over here on your radiator. So when you activate the ARGB, right, your fan will, your block and your fan will all go accordingly to the effects that you have set on your motherboard. Once you have connected this, right, now what a trick that you might want to learn is that make use of this holder, the bracket holder, to hold the cable. See, you'll be neater. Anyway, I'm not going to do it right now, just to show you. And next will be this cable. You might be saying that, well, this is taunting. It's like, you know, lots of connection here. Don't worry about the connection. Now, just make sure that the connection over here, right? Okay, let me just show you over here. Now, this is the receiver end where you plug this at the end of the fan itself, right, to here. If it's not long enough, make use of the extension that is provided. So right now I'm just going to use this as it's not long enough. At the very end where you did all the daisy chain itself, right, where you have this, right, just clip this to here. This is an extension, and this will reach out to this cable over here. So you can just connect it. This is done. Now, as mentioned to you, the block itself, right, this unique cable is only meant for ARGB, but on the fan itself, this is meant for ARGB and your RPM of your fans. Meaning to say, to control your fan speed. Then when you split over here, right, there are 3 cables over here. I will start off with this last one. This is to be connected to your motherboard ARGB header, where you control the ARGB effects on your fans and your pump using the motherboard utility. And at the center cable over here, this is where you plug the SATA from your PSU over here, is to provide power to your fans. Last but not least, this is the RPM, whereby you should be plugging this to the CPU1 header on your motherboard. So this is how it works. You might be asking, why am I plugging to the CPU1 itself? Because this is in fact the PWM connector, whereby you will control your radiator fans. And if you are confused with all the connections over here, right, do not worry, you can refer to the manual. It's written very clearly, so you can just follow. And I know that it takes time for you to digest on which connection to which, so do it slowly, not to hurry. Alright, let me just show you the ARGB effects on the fan and the pump itself before I show you the results on how well this AIO does on a 7950X AM5 platform. Before I show you the ARGB effect on this AIO pump and the fans on the radiator, all these fan blades, now take note that once this is turned on, right, you will hear noises as this fans here will be ramping up at full speed, 2250 RPM. Reason to do so, right, as I'm conducting this test on a AM5 platform, which is having a 7950X chipset. And the characteristic of it, right, when it's at 100% load, it will push max to 95 degrees Celsius, and depending on how well your cooler can provide the cooling solution to the chipset, it will draw that calculation, as in like the cooling calculation, and to draw the power from the motherboard and to push the clock speed. So this is how AM5 platform is being done. Without further ado, let me just show you the ARGB effect. Let me just turn this off. Take note that my microphone is away from the radiator 1 feet apart, so when I turn on, right, you might be able to hear noises. So as mentioned, these are at full load, 2250 RPM. So if you can hear the noise, right, for me, when I listen to the noise, right, it's not so terrible as to compare to some of the noisier fan. Now when this is placed in the case itself, right, the noise is minimal, and even if you can hear noises, right, it's not a sharp pitch or a howling kind of noises. It's very soothing. And speaking of the ARGB effect, right, now this is infinity mirror, where you can see at the sides, not too sure if you can see, and also in the inner of the centerpiece, and there's a light glow on the logo. And on the colors on the blades itself, right, I mean the ARGB colors is very vibrant, and the brightness doesn't glare my eyes at all. It's very soothing, and it complements the AIO. Now I will show you the actual benchmark, but before I do so, listen to the noise of the fan. Alright, I'm going to take you to the benchmark and to show you what this AIO is capable of in order to push the clock frequency of the chipset. As you can see here, I've run this on Cinebench R23 on a 7950X at 100 load, and it's about 3 minutes before it ended. I'm actually doing the 10 minutes throttle test. As mentioned to you, right, it depends on how much the cooling you can provide to the chipset, and you will just draw the power from the motherboard and to push the core clock. As you can see here, consistently, now it's 5.3 gigahertz. This is the boost clock. And at consistent, right, it's 4.8 gigahertz. So this does proves that this AIO, in fact, did its job. As in like the original, or should I say the default clock speed of a 7950X is 4.5. Instead, it's running at 4.8 gigahertz, which is 300 megahertz more. And the boost is not so bad, which is actually a 5.3 gigahertz. There you have it. The results are out, and it's proven that this AIO cooler indeed able to tame this AM5 platform, or should I say the 7950X, and it does match the default clock speed, which is 4.5 4.5 gigahertz, but it went to 4.8 and with a boost clock of 5.3 gigahertz. And there are some points that which I like and don't like. First of all, the lights, unlike the ARGB effects, which is not very glaring, and especially the effect on the infinity mirror at the sides and at the center core. And next will be the hose. These are nicely braided hose, and you have this so-called brackets to hold on the hose itself. This is pretty good. The noise of the fan itself, though, from near, right, I can hear it very loud, but if I were to move away and to place in the case, right, not so much. So that's a bonus point. And it doesn't give a sharp pitch or a howling noise. And the mechanism itself, right, some might hate it, some might not. You can daisy chain them, which leave all the cable mess and, you know, leave off the cable mess, and it's pretty neat and tidy, all in just one strand. Besides this, right, the bad points whereby I do not like, first of all, the brackets, the mounting brackets on the pump to this bracket over here, they are shining chrome. I hope that it should be black in color, at least it's not so obvious, because when you have the prints on this chrome pieces, right, at no time when you are running the system for some time, this prints will be like discoloration, and you can see the ugliness of the prints on this bracket itself. Second of all, which I do not like, in fact, is this okay, from the AIO, you have this unique connector which is to run the ARGB, which clip onto the fan itself at the end of this clip over here. Now the problem is, when you plug it in, right, it's very easy. When you take it out, right, it's pretty hard to pull it out. Probably you have to wank it out, and with 3 strand, right, it's pretty weak, so you might just rip off the cable. I hope that they would to provide another extension cable whereby if you were to do this, right, let me just show you. Now if they have another extension cable and to clip this in, right, see, this is 5 strand, so if you were to hold on the 5 strand and to pull, right, it's not so terrible. At least the strength is distributed among the 5 strands instead of the 3 strand. This is very weak. So having to say, this extension plugging over here, right, let's say I plug it over here, when you plug this to the extension itself, it's so much easier to take it out. See, I can just hold on the whole piece here and to pull, no problem. Else, if I were to clip this to here, it's all flush in, and it's very hard for me to grab from the sides and to pull it out. As mentioned, this might just break off. So overall, I would say that this AIO is good to go for AM5, but if you were to tell whether is it the best, I wouldn't know. And if you look at my top right hand corner, right, I have some pictures that I'm going to test the rest of the AIO with this platform here. Also using this, I will see if this is actually the best cooler among all. With this said, for those of you actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel, and if you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.